chair of the police board, has made it clear Deputy Chief Jason Crowley will not face any internal discipline after being charged with stunt driving. But Windsor Police Association President Kent Rice says Crowley's actions damage the reputation of the service, undermines public trust, and that disciplinary action should be taken. Before we hear more about what both sides are saying, let's look back at what happened and how it all unfolded. In the early morning hours of January 7th, 2023, Crowley was pulled over in his personal vehicle for traveling 111 kilometers per hour in an area with a posted speed limit of 70. That happened in Amherstburg, a community Windsor Police oversees. At that time, the constable who pulled him over didn't lay a charge, impound his vehicle, or suspend his license, as is required under the Highway Traffic Act. We also know the officer knew who Crowley was at the time. None of this was made public right away. February 25th, 7 weeks after the incident, Windsor Police publicly announced Crowley has been charged with stunt driving. On March 3rd, 2023, the board asked the Ontario Civilian Police Commission to investigate. May 15th, Crowley pleaded guilty to speeding and was issued a fine of $352. October 20th, 2023, Crowley is named the permanent deputy chief. And then on July 2nd, 2024, the OCPC sends its investigative findings to the Windsor Police Board. Then the board makes those findings public on August 22nd on their website. The OCPC is a public oversight body and found everyone involved acted in good faith, but says there were several misunderstandings because stunt driving warrants a mandatory charge and it's not discretionary as the officer thought. They recommended training but didn't look into possible disciplinary action for Crowley.
He's gone through an OCPC investigation. We're quite happy with the results and that the matter is fully concluded from the board's perspective.
However, the Windsor Police Association points out that the OCPC investigation only examined why Crowley wasn't issued a ticket. In a statement, President Kent Rice says the fundamental issue of his conduct that has damaged the reputation of the service remains unaddressed. He wants the board to take action in holding Crowley accountable. Historically, Rice says officers who violate the service's code of conduct and damage the organization's reputation are charged with discreditable conduct under the Police Services Act. Rice says no discipline for Crowley showcases what seems like a two-tiered system of discipline. He adds that this creates inconsistency, division, hypocrisy, undermines credibility of the board, and erodes trust among employees and the community. But Dilkins appears firm in the board's decision.
We're not going to pile on here. We understand what happened. We understand, and as the OCPC report shows, an officer made an error. And made a miscalculation in terms of what the law was.
The OCPC investigation was on the agenda during today's Windsor Police Services board meeting.
All in favor? Opposed? That's carried.
And no questions were asked by any board members. After the meeting, a police spokesperson said both Chief Jason Belair and Deputy Chief Jason Crowley are not taking questions at this time. Jason Vio, CBC News, Windsor.
Windsor police say they're continuing to focus on the Glen Gary apartment complex. Earlier this month, they made dozens of arrests at the 300-block buildings and have laid out multiple charges, including assault and arson. Police say this comes after stepping up patrols in the area.
And working with our partners, we're trying to find out that the people that are actually living there are supposed to be living there. I think that's part of the problem, is that there needs to be a method or a better way of finding out and being able to remove people that are not supposed to be there, and working with the landlords and in the city to be able to identify, hey, listen, if this person doesn't live here, they need to either pay the rent for proper housing or it's time to go. So I think that's part of the problem, is that we're trying to identify and trying to really figure out who lives there and who's not supposed to be there, and I think that's part of the problem.
The Housing Corporation recently told CBC trespassers find their way into the building, an issue as the Glen Gary apartment complex is one of the top locations for violent crimes in the city. Police have set up an office in one of the Glen Gary apartment buildings to provide a faster response time, saying they'd be interested in working with other organizations to provide wraparound services for residents. Another issue police say they're seeing at the Glen Gary complex is intimate partner violence. Windsor police are applying for funding to better tackle IPV and say they will be launching a citywide strategy to deal with the issue later this fall.
We're in the process right now of operationalizing that plan. I've been working with our partners. The chief had mentioned that are stepping up to help us out, and looking at hopefully sometime in September rolling this thing out. But as we get more information, we'll provide it in more detail and more depth.
Residents in Stony Point may soon start to smell something a little unpleasant in the air. It will be coming from the sewage lagoons south of the Tremblay Beach Conservation Area. Dale Molnar has more on why that is.
The municipality of Lakeshore is emptying out some of the water in the sewage lagoons as part of routine maintenance. They say the wastewater is released to prevent overflow when the levels get too high. The head of water management explains that the wastewater in the lagoons is treated before released into Lake St. Clair. According to Jason Barlow, to ensure that the treated wastewater effluent meets all regulatory requirements and guidelines, the lagoon is also chemically treated. The lagoons are located just south of the Tremblay Beach Conservation Area. The municipality says once the levels of the lagoon drop low enough, residents might smell the solids that settle at the bottom and would then be more exposed. Resident Dan Demers says he is concerned about the release into the lake.
I don't think it's very good they're doing that, but that's not going to be good for the fishermen, and that's not going to be good for even the water, because we used to have a clean lake. Now it's not getting no better. And with them doing it, it's no better when they're doing that.
The municipality says the treatment of the wastewater is safe and that it's meeting Ministry of the Environment requirements. That's good enough for Henry Tian.
I have no idea. As long as you treat it properly, I think you can do that. I think so. As long as you treat it.
The municipality is currently working on a water and wastewater master plan. It includes a new sewage treatment facility worth $70 million.
And we are intending to get rid of our lagoons for the most part from an operational perspective, although they may, in detailed design, be recommended to hold some of the, overage flows that we get when it's wet weather conditions.
The municipal council will deal with the plan next month. The municipality reports that the sewage release will take 2 weeks. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Stony Point.
The City of Windsor says it won't comment on a motor vehicle collision that appeared to involve a city vehicle until Windsor police complete an investigation. Footage shot today at the scene shows a white van with the City of Windsor logo on the driver's side door and a slightly dented hood. A bicycle was propped up beside it. Windsor police say a cyclist was sent to hospital following the collision. It closed the intersection of Howard Avenue and Tecumseh Road East. That intersection has since reopened. You probably think your dog is pretty special because, well, we all think our own dogs are better than the best. But there's an opportunity at Colasanti's in Ruthven to see just how impressive your dog really is. The biggest annual dog show in Windsor, Essex County starts today. Windsor Morning's Amy Dodge chatted with a member of the Windsor All-Breed Training and Track Club.
We've heard a lot more about people deciding to add dogs to their household during the pandemic. No surprise there. Does that mean that there's also an interest in dog shows?
There is, to a certain extent. We're trying to increase it, partly because we want people to be informed when they go to decide on what family members they're going to include into their household. Because sometimes you need to know the breed well. Even if it's a mix, you kind of need to know what the characteristics of that dog is, because sometimes it meets what you're doing in your household, or, oh no, I don't have time to do all that craziness. So you kind of need to do the research, and that's where dog shows come in to play. There's a lot of people there that have different breeds, and when they're not in the ring, they are willing to talk about their breed and give you information to hopefully hone you into what works with your family.
Yesterday was Rainbow Bridge Remembrance Day, a day for people to mourn the loss of pets who've passed. Tonight's Rose City Rewind goes back to 1987 when a group of people in the city were petitioning the provincial government to make sure animals got the same burial rights as humans. Former CBC Windsor reporter Brian Worrell with this report.
From the names on the gravestones at Sleepy Hollow Cemetery, it's apparent this is not your average cemetery. It's a pet cemetery. Nonetheless, many of the graves are tended as well as though their occupants were human and beloved members of the family. There are at least 200 pets buried here, possibly more, although no one knows for sure because many of the graves are now unmarked. Grave markers and records were lost during a period of neglect. The property changed hands twice in the past 2 years and then was taken over by a trust company. Fearing that the graves would be plowed under, some animal lovers dug up their pets' bodies to bury them somewhere else. Others waited anxiously to find out the future of the site.
We felt terrible when we lost them. And we do care to go down and see them once in a while. We don't want to see the place in a mess.
To make sure that the new cemetery will be permanent, these people are petitioning the province to give pet cemeteries the same legal protections as human cemeteries. They say only then can they be sure their beloved pets will rest in peace.
Chris, we had a couple pretty dreary days there, but the sun has come out. It is shining so beautifully down here on downtown Windsor.
Yeah, a very cloudy start, though, and this was pretty universal across southern Ontario, but now high pressure continues to build in from the north. That is stabilizing the weather for this evening, tonight, and through tomorrow morning in the Windsor area. Unfortunately, by the afternoon, we get into a slight chance of a couple of hit or miss showers, maybe the odd rumble of thunder, but it's really the evening hours that you have to plan for. Wet weather, and there will be the risk of thunderstorms, non-severe in nature, but there still could be some heavier downpours, at least briefly, as a feature moves through, and that feature is a cold front. Normal daytime high for this time of year in Windsor, 25.2, around 25 for today. We're still there in Windsor, 24 through Chatham, 24 through Sarnia, 21 towards Brockville and Ottawa, and the humidity levels did make it feel a little bit higher as well, but it wasn't as intense as obviously the last couple of days. It felt like 40, but that's coming in the forecast for tomorrow. A big surge of warmer and humid air moves back in. So it's 25, feeling like 34 right now. Once again, it might feel as high as 40 tomorrow, and that's going to be the story for tomorrow that allows the rain and thunderstorms to develop as a cold front moves through. So here's the cloud continuing to clear off the map, and once again, we will be quiet, dry through the evening and overnight. Once we get into the day tomorrow, that feature will begin to move back in, and that will once again give us that opportunity for wet weather. Here's how it looks. Clear to mostly clear for tonight. We start to see these scattered showers and a few thunderstorms move in down towards Windsor and Sarnia, up towards Goddard to the Lake Huron shoreline. But as we get into the evening, the main wave of rainfall moves through. Now, behind the cold front, it doesn't really cool off dramatically into Saturday. Humidity levels will be reduced, and it gets a whole lot colder as we get, or I shouldn't say colder, but cooler as we get into the end of the long weekend. And I think you're going to like the long weekend forecast. So for Saturday, we will start off with a decent amount of cloud. That starts to thin out nicely into Saturday afternoon, clear and quiet through Saturday evening, overnight. Into Sunday, we'll start off with a lot of sunshine. There's this narrow band of cloud associated with another cold front, not much moisture to work with. So the only thing you're going to see is brief passing cloud, then you're back into the sunshine. So it's shaping up to be a great Sunday, and for that matter, Saturday's not too bad either, if you don't mind the cloudy start. Overnight lows a little bit cooler towards London at 14, 20 Leamington as well as Chatham, 19 in Windsor. Once again, we'll see these scattered showers move in. Lower chance the further east you go, but once again, the evening is when the main business of active weather starts to move back in, but then we dry out nicely for the end of the weekend and into next week, pretty much the entire next week. So the temperatures 31 for tomorrow, probably going to feel closer to 40. Overnight lows around 21, back up to 27 for the afternoon. Cloud cover to start, and then we get back into sunshine for the afternoon. Once again, midday cloud for Sunday, then back into sunshine for Monday for Labor Day. Highs will take a bit of a hit with highs around 23, then 24 for back to school for a lot of those kids with lots of sunshine. And Meg, if you like that stretch of sunshine, guess what? It's going to continue into Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and maybe even Saturday. So back to school week, it's going to be dry. You don't have to worry about the rubber boots and the umbrellas.
Perfect back to school weather. And I can't believe we're saying that, Chris. Like, it's already that time of the year.
I'm kind of looking forward to it, though.
Yeah.
Because my kids, you know,
yeah,
a
no, I
handful
get it.
sometimes, and I'm sure I'm not alone. I'm sure a lot of parents there are watching going, yeah, I can't wait. But go ahead.
I think a lot of parents, are probably in the same boat that you are.
Yeah, unless it's junior kindergarten, it's going to be a little bit tough. It was tough for my son to go.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for that, Chris.
You got it, Meg.
For most in Windsor, Essex school starts back Tuesday. New rules mean your child may have to get used to less screen time. That story coming up after the break. School will be back in session for most students across the province next week, and this year they'll be faced with a big adjustment. No cell phones in the classroom, but questions remain around how the new restrictions will be enforced, with some teachers worried they'll be left to police technology without proper support. Queen's Park reporter Lorenda Redekop explains.
Because I said so, said Buddy.
Ontario's new education minister visited one school that's already back in session. None of these little ones pulled out a phone during story time. As of September 1st, the new province-wide rules take effect. For students in kindergarten to grade 6, there will be no phone access at all during the school day. For grades 7 to 12, no phones in class, but they can look at them at lunch and recess. One exception is if phones are part of learning. The minister acknowledges it'll be a challenge.
Enforcement is going to be a big issue, and we want to ensure that I want teachers to know this is a new initiative. This is a culture change. There is discipline policies in place, and we will support educators and principals in the actions that they take.
But there are questions about how it'll all work. School boards have been posting about the change and sending out reminders to parents and students. Toronto's public board underscoring that if a student doesn't put their phone away, it's off to the principal's office. Educators agree phones in class have turned into a distraction.
It's just the addictive default. Oh, I don't know how to do this problem right away. It's just to my phone to watch YouTube videos, TikTok videos, listen to music.
We want students to be speaking to their peers who are in front of them, as opposed to be connecting to someone who's 3 floors away.
Up until now, schools and teachers have put in place their own guidelines to keep the phones away.
An example I always like to use is the paper bag. Students are issued a brown paper bag and are asked to leave their devices in their actual knapsacks.
The Union for High School Teachers worries about teachers having to enforce the rules.
We basically play a game of whack-a-mole where this phone, this phone, this phone, and that's what you spend most of your time doing.
She says there are other concerns in education she wants addressed.
It's about funding and education and having the supports in place. And we're talking about cell phones, and we're ignoring overcrowded classes and hot classrooms and unqualified staff and all the real issues in education.
That was CBC's Lorenda Redekop reporting. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is calling on Jagmeet Singh to withdraw NDP's support of the Liberal government, a move that would have triggered an election. But as Olivia Stefanovich reports, that's not likely to happen.
Riding high in the polls, the Conservative leader is calling on the NDP leader to end his agreement propping up the Liberals.
Break the costly coalition with Trudeau to trigger a carbon tax election.
In a letter, Pierre Poilievre calls on Jagmeet Singh to pull out of the costly coalition and vote non-confidence in the government this September to trigger a carbon tax election in October of this year.
Jagmeet Singh is trying to delay the election until after February of next year so that he can qualify for a $2.2 million taxpayer-funded pension.
It's all part of a larger Tory strategy. They have been targeting Singh for months.
Sell out Singh. He gets his pension. You pay the price.
What it doesn't mention is that Poilievre qualified for his MP pension in 2010.
I don't think that responding to Pierre Poilievre's kind of little bombshells is what we want to be focusing on.
Instead, New Democrats say they're concentrating on making the most of their deal with the Liberals, an agreement that they say will end on their terms.
It has always been on the table that it could end at some point. That doesn't mean that Pierre Poilievre gets to make those decisions.
He'll come after our pensions and our EI.
With 2 upcoming by-elections in Manitoba and Quebec, the NDP is hitting back with attack ads.
Vote no to Conservative cuts in Elmwood Transcona.
As for the Liberals, the government is brushing off any suggestion their deal with the NDP is in jeopardy.
We need to really take these assertions by the Conservative leader with a very healthy grain of salt.
Some Liberals say the more time they wait to call an election, the more time the economy will improve. Something the finance minister calls bad news for the Conservatives, despite the Liberals trailing in the polls for well over a year. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Ottawa.
Stay tuned. We have more news coming up after the break. A discount airline is now offering some flights for just $1. Nisha Patel explains.
The new Flair Airlines offer of some base fares for just $1 is an attention grabber for potential customers.
I'd love to take advantage of it if I can.
Hey, make it to as many destinations as you can for $1. I'm good with it.
I'm all about the saving money.
But others are skeptical.
I'd have to assume there'd be a whole bunch of other charges or flights might get disrupted.
There is a catch. For now, the deal is on select flights back to Canada from sun destinations like Mexico, though that could change depending on the season. It's a way for Flair to fill seats on flights that have less demand.
Even if we put 4 people onto that flight who otherwise wouldn't have taken it, that's great. We're happy about that.
The true cost, though, is more than $1. Take a December flight from Cancun to Calgary. Taxes and airport fees add more than $80, plus extras like a checked bag, another $85. All in, that's about $167.
It's a gimmick. They're doing this to try to drive business to the site and to get people comfortable with flying on this airline.
That may be a big challenge for Flair. The low-cost carrier made headlines back in March when flight cancellations left passengers stranded for days. Flair is also reportedly trying to raise cash as it tries to manage its huge debt burden.
They're trying to give some confidence to the marketplace that they are going to be around.
With rivals Lynx, Swoop, and Canada Jetlines all out of the picture this year, industry watchers say Flair did have a profitable summer.
Do they have enough cash left over from summer, basically to carry them over until next summer? And that's the question.
And the answer to that is still up in the air. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
An amazing sight greeted passerbys on a road overlooking the Swiss Alps. What looks like an avalanche is actually clouds rolling down into a mountain pass in Switzerland. The weather phenomenon is known as a phone, which in German means hair dryer. It occurs when a humid, cold air mass rises over a mountain and then cascades down the other side. It also causes the air to rapidly become hot and dry when it reaches the valley. That's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also download the CBC News app for stories that matter most to you. And don't forget to watch The National tonight at 9 on CBC News Network, 10 p.m. on the CBC News app, CBC TV, and streaming on CBC Gem and CBC Explore. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.